Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. We are here with Nani today and we're going to be talking about our Arcanist. We kind of stopped. So Nani, I'm trying to remember. I think we stopped. We just kind of ran out of time. You actually had to leave early, and then I kind of went late, but kind of ran out of time a bit. So yeah. Did you have any thoughts on our build last time, Nani? Anything that takeaways or things from
Um,
it, or
well, we were looking at the reliquins for the body and sergeants for the jewelry and the weapons. But when we left off, there wasn't the the DPS numbers weren't very good,
yeah?
but I didn't get a chance to really do any parsing to practice with it.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, and I did save the bar. I think this is what we went to at the very end, is the bar I have kind of set up right now. But I think one of the things we were using the beam, the exhausting fate carver,
Hmm.
and one of the issues we're having is with sergeants. You need to heavy attack, and it's only buffing your heavy attacks. Well, the channel on the Fate Carver is like 4.5 seconds. So one eternity. So
Okay.
that's, because a heavy attack is 1.8 seconds. So you're like, what is that? 2.5 times as long as a heavy attack. Does that math check out? Pretty close to it. So we have one whole 5 piece set that is supposed to buff our heavy attacks, but we're not heavy attacking for huge stretches of time.
Okay.
So I was up a little late last night. I just couldn't sleep. So and honestly, I needed to kind of get moving on this stuff anyways. So I kind of cheated a little bit. And honestly, I was thinking it would help us for time to be able to get through this. I want to stream for about an hour today. Um,
Okay.
but to be able to move through this kind of quickly, basically, I think what we need to do is so with the channeled ability, like the beam, a really good set would be deadly. What is it? Deadly something.
Oh, yeah.
The is it just deadly? Just deadly. All right.
Yeah, I
Which,
know what you mean though.
yeah, it literally is just deadly. Is all it says here for the tooltip, at least. I feel like there's probably a longer name, but anyways, that buffs all of your damage over time and channeled abilities. So something like that would work really well with the beam. And then for heavy attacks, I just don't think you can use the beam with it. I don't think it makes sense at all. Um, yeah, I just don't think. And then deadly is not going to help your heavy attacks. Um, so what do you
What
do
about
there?
what about the Storm Masters?
There's nothing wrong with Storm Master. I have done a lot of testing with heavy attack builds,
Okay.
and I think the reason that we chose Reliquin as opposed to Storm Master is because Reliquin works really well. And Reliquin can also work well for other things, and it's just generally a meta set. So if
Okay.
any kind of build can use Reliquin, as long as you're hitting those light attacks or doing lighter heavy attacks, I guess. As long as you're hitting them and you're not ignoring them, it's going to work really well. It's single target, sure. But yeah, you could absolutely. I think last time we mentioned this, but basically, the sergeant set, the sergeant's mail, is the only set you really need for a heavy attack. That's
Okay.
that's the go-to set. Your other set, you can use any meta set. You could use Pillar of Nirn if you wanted. The thing is that um, Reliquin is it's a trial set, so you don't need that. We talked about it before that you don't need the trial. You don't need the trial buff if you have the Oaken Soul ring on. If you don't have the Oaken Soul ring on, then having a trial set is very important. Also, the extra 5 piece bonus if you have perfected, which I know not everybody will, but that is basically an extra line, right? So if you do have Oaken Soul, your 3 piece bonus isn't really doing anything. But if you stack stamina, that extra 5 piece is kind of making up for that. So it's kind of a wash. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So normally you'd have
Uh,
you'd have 5 lines, but with perfected trial gear, you have 6 lines because the 5 piece bonus has 2 bonuses. Has its
right.
like specialty thing, and then it has an extra line. Does that kind of explain that or make sense?
Yes, it does. I just, when I left last time, we were setting up a 2-bar
Yeah.
heavy build.
S-
That's where my disconnect was there for a second. I'm sorry.
Oh no, no, you're good. So yeah, basically, I think the situation was that we needed to either use the beam. So this is a unique class in that the beam it lasts for 4.5 seconds, right? Nobody else
Mhm.
has that. Templar with their jabs is the only other thing that's vaguely close, and that's still less than half the time. And honestly, that would be the same situation. Like using jabs or sweeps, which is the channel Templar ability, would not work well with a heavy attack build in general because it's the same situation, but it's even worse with this beam because it lasts for so long. So we just need to, get rid of the beam basically. So I'll kind of cheat here. Are you can you see my stream by any chance, Nani? Are you
I can. Yeah, I've got you set up right next to mine. So
okay?
when I left, we had only put in 3 skills. So I had Barb Trap and Writhing Rune Blades on the front bar, and on the back bar, I had Camouflage Hunter. And that's as far as I got.
Cool. So yeah, I'll just show you here. This might be a little small, but I can talk you through it as well.
Okay. Yeah. You're on my phone.
Okay, on the phone. Yeah, that's going to be real small. And you know
Here,
what?
let me.
I need it.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure that you're coming through. Okay, your audio is coming through. I'm like, some
Oh,
people could just be hearing one side of a conversation, but hopefully someone would say something by now. But
well,
yeah,
I'm
we're
going to do the same because. Okay, you're good.
good. Audio.
Technical stuff.
I know audio issues are like the bane of my existence.
Right.
So yeah, I can walk you through a bar setup if you'd
Okay.
like. So this is for the
Yes,
2-bar
please.
build for Cloud Rest for those who weren't here last time or just tuning in. So we're gonna have some redundancy. So on your front and back bar, you're gonna pick 2 spots you're not gonna use, and I would put Camel Hunter and Ring of Preservation, which are both from the
Ring.
Fighters Guild skill line.
Okay.
You could use any Fighters Guild skills here. Camouflage Hunter is one that I would definitely use because it will give you Minor Berserk, even if you're not being hit with Combat Prayer, which would be another source of that buff. Oaken Soul
Okay.
also gives that buff, but again, we're not going to be using that since this is a 2-bar build.
Okay. So on the back bar, I have Camouflage Hunter and Ring of Preservation.
Yep, and on front bar you'll have the same.
Oh,
You'll
okay.
put that both those on. So basically, I'll kind of explain as we go along. But basically, the issue is that we really well. I'll explain as we go along. So in front bar, let's just get your bar set up. So on your front bar, you're gonna have Barb Trap, Scalding Ruin, and then Writhing Ruin Blades, which is the small little triangles you throw out. I think they're triangles.
Writhing Rune Blades. Barb Trap, Writhing Rune Blades, and what was the other one?
Scalding Ruin, Barb Trap, Ruin Blades.
Okay, now I'm thrown again.
Okay,
So right
so
now I've
Barb
got.
Trap from the Fighter's Guild skill line,
Right,
Scalding
got that one.
Ruin, which is from the Mage's Guild skill line,
Oh,
and
okay, that's the one.
and then from your class skill line, your DPS skill line, I forget which one that is, the Writhing Ruin Blades.
It was the Scalding Rune Blades that I didn't have. Okay, so front bar is set.
Thanks, Wizzle. I appreciate that. Cool. All right, and then on your back bar, and you might have to remorph this, but the tentacles that you shoot out, you're going to use Tentacular Dread, which is probably a morph that you would typically not use, but it's going to work really well with this build. I don't think it's used on most of the meta setups for a more traditional build.
Okay,
Let me know when you got that one.
got it.
All right, and then Fulminating Ruin. These are all going to be from the same skill line here, I believe.
Okay, Fulminating Rune is. I haven't morphed any of them yet, so I don't know which.
Oh, no worries. I can help you out. So Fulminating Ruin is the 5th skill.
Okay.
And then Inspired Scholarship, which is the 4th skill. So basically, you're going to have everything on your bar from this Herald of the Tome skill line, except for the Fate Carver, which is the beam.
Okay. So, back bar, camouflage hunter, ring of preservation, tentacular dread, inspired scholarship, and fulminating rune.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then and on the back bar, ulti. Should I use the languid eye also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
For both. Okay.
Cool.
And I also learned that you can move that. I didn't know that
Move.
before.
Move what?
That ultimate. So if you put it down somewhere and the boss moves, you can move it to him.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that before.
Yeah, I think one more if you can, one more if you can't.
Gotcha.
Oh, hey, I got a group invite from you. Okay, so let's talk about this bar. So the idea here is, so we have Scalding Ruin, right? And we remember that we have to use that all the time. So the reason we're using this is because it gives us Empower. Empower is what gives us the extra 70% damage on our heavy attacks. And since we're not using the Oaken Soul Ring, we absolutely need this. There's a few other places you can get it, but as far as providing it for yourself and from a non-class ability, that's the skill that you want to use probably in most situations. And the reason you want to use it is because if you read it, it hits everybody in the area and does initial damage, and then it does damage over time. Well, that initial damage is actually pretty much what you would get from a it depends a little bit, but it's within the realm of what you would get from using most spammables. So really good spammables might hit harder than that, but basically we're not punished for recasting it early. Now, it's really confusing the way this works, unfortunately. So you cast it, and then it'll start a 26-second timer. You'll usually see it already tick down to 25 is the first thing you'll see. And so the Empower lasts for 10 seconds. So you need to be recasting it so if you have your counters on, if you're using like something that actually shows the timers, the seconds, you'll want to be casting it at 17 seconds.
Okay.
Because at 16 seconds, so about 17 seconds, whenever I see that, I want to be casting it next. Now, we're heavy attacking, and then we're casting a skill. So even though heavy attacks are 1.8 seconds, I kind of just count them as being 2, just because it's easier for the math, right? So we have our heavy attack, we'll call it 2 seconds, and then we cast the skill. So we have to realize that, if we're in the middle of a heavy attack, we've got to finish that heavy attack. And then if we cast another skill, we want to cast skill, heavy attack all the time. So let's say we notice during a heavy attack that, hey, I need to recast Scalding Ruin. Well, if we cast something else and then we would have to heavy attack, that puts us 3 seconds out from upping that. So that means that at like 20 seconds, we need to be looking at recasting this Scalding Ruin. Right? So that's the math on this. It's kind of silly that you have to do all this, but anyways. So about 20 seconds. If you're 20 seconds and you're heavy attacking, then if you're going to finish the heavy attack by 20 seconds, then you could do one more skill before you cast Ruin. Otherwise, just go ahead and recast it. Also, you can use this kind of as a spammable, so you can always just recast it early. And generally speaking, that's a good idea. So even if it's at 20 seconds or 21 seconds or whatever, and all your other dots are up, you might recast it. It's not the worst thing in the world, I guess, is what I'll say.
Okay.
Now, we have Barb Trap, because that's a really good dot. It also gives us extra critical damage, which is probably overkill. Honestly, we could probably find a way to not need it, but it's a really good dot. And it also gives us passive damage just by being on our bar. And so it just does so much that, like, having Barb Trap, it's like kind of the one skill you always want to have on your bar. And then the Writhing Ruin Blade, we're really using mostly to generate Crux. We need some way of generating Crux. It does really good damage, especially when you have multiple stacks of the Crux on your, it increases the critical chance up to like 75% when you're fully like raid buffed. So it does a lot of damage.
Okay.
The reason we want the Crux is because Tentacular Dread, if you read that, so both versions of both morphs of this give you the Abyssal Ink, which increases the damage taken by enemies hit with it by 5%. But the morph of this, when it consumes all the Crux, and increases the damage the skill does by 20%. But more importantly for us, it also increases the debuff, or however you want to say it, but the buff to our damage with the debuff to the enemy, which causes them to take 2% more damage per crux. So that means that when we have 3 crux up and we cast this skill, it's going to cause opponents to take 11% more damage. So that's a pretty huge deal. So that's going to be one of the, and it lasts for 20 seconds. So what we want to do is generate 3 crux and then make sure that we always have this skill up, this buff up. Now for Inspired Scholarship, that is going to give us a crux if we don't have one. And so that's one way that, so we don't have to cast, and it's a good dot also, but it's so we don't have to cast so many times Writhing Runeblade. So during our heavy attacks, typically, not always, typically during our heavy attacks, and after we've spent all of our, so we'd use Tentacular Dread, and then we would heavy attack after that, and we just used all of our crux. So in theory, it doesn't always work out, but usually we'll get a crux back.
Okay.
And so then we only have to cast Runeblades twice before we have our full stack, and we can use Tentacular Dread. Does all that more or less make sense? And then Fulminating Ruin we use here because it's a decent dot, and it's going to provide 3 synergies for our group, which will make it a really good skill to have.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So we are trying to use just 3 of the abilities on each bar, and make sure that we're keeping up our Scalding Run, right? Whenever at 17 seconds, we need to be casting it. And so we need to be looking at about 20 seconds. And don't worry about casting it early, right? Because it does decent damage. So you can cast it early. It's not a big deal. And then after that, it's just keeping up all of our dots.
Okay, so I don't ever use Ring of Preservation or Camouflage Hunter. They're just there for the passives.
Correct. Okay. And Camouflage Hunter, just in general, if you ever use it on your bar, it's always it's like a PvP thing. If you're actually casting it, for PvP, it's always just something you put on your bar.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
PvP.
What's that?
I don't PvP.
Yeah. So when you're going in here and you're going to start your parse, what you're going to do, obviously you'll get ulti. Oh, look at us, twinsies. So and I forget the name of these skills. So Inspired Scholarship, you'll precast that, and that's gonna generate a crux for you once you enter combat. So you'll precast that on your back bar. Also make sure you've got food, and we might need to check CP and stuff too, actually, just to make sure we get a good parse here. But you'll precast that, and then when you switch to your front bar, you're gonna go Ruin, Barb Trap, back bar, and then I like to go with the Tentacular Dread. Now it's only going to have 1 stack, so it's only going to be giving a 7% damage increase instead of an 11. But we really want to go ahead and start with that damage, and then after that, you can drop ulti, go ahead and finish up your dots with Fulminating Ruin, which will be this skill in your back bar that you haven't cast, and then you're back to your front bar. You probably need to recast Ruin at that point. And then whenever you don't have anything to cast and all your dots are up, you're going to cast your Runeblades to get up to 3 stacks.
That just went right past.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's a lot here. So we'll come over here and we'll play around a little bit. So we're not worried about our damage right now.
1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
One thing we didn't do, am I putting everything in magic?
I went with Stam on my character because a lot of stuff is Stam, and it just kind of makes it easy. And we get that extra bonus from having, and this also depends what sets, right? But for Reliquin, since we do want a trial set with this build, since we're not running the Mythic, you really want that Minor Slayer for the extra 5% damage, and then the 5-piece bonus is extra stamina, so it'll be better if we stack stamina with this build, this whole setup.
Okay, works for me.
And then for gear, for gear, I've got 5-piece on the body rally.
Yep.
Jewelry and weapon are sergeants.
Yep.
And then monster helm is Zon.
Yep.
And then for weapon, so this is what I did just to make it easy. I went with precise for both of my weapons. I went with a fire and then a poison enchant. And the reason for that is I played around with casting Wall of Elements, and you could put Wall on here if you're doing like something. Well, if you're doing solo, you really should just be using Oak and Soul. But I played around with using Wall of Elements for the off balance, and also doing an infused back bar staff. The thing is, the way the heavy attacks works. So this is all the little things that just can make stuff seem so complicated. If you are on your front bar and you just cast a heavy attack and then you cast a skill, you really want to be casting a skill and then bar swapping and starting on your back bar with a heavy attack, because if you switch to your other bar and try to cast a skill, it will fairly often bug out. So what I mean, if you're on your front bar and you just heavy attacked and then you cast the skill and then you just heavy attack and then you try to bar swap and cast a skill. Whenever I was doing that, I was finding, not always, but enough to be really annoying, that it wouldn't work right. So really what you want to do is when you bar swap, it's after you've cast the skill. So heavy attack, skill, and then bar swap. And the other thing about that is that you can animation cancel the skill as well. So the skill takes less time to go off, and that leaves you more time to do damage.
Okay.
But the main thing is it won't glitch out on you.
Right. So back to the skills, and what you hit first, second, third, and bars. Let's go over that real quick because I'd like to line things up so that they're in a
in a good spot.
logical, yeah.
So you'll get a feel for it, and you can come back and look at this. Or you can ask me. We can talk or whatever. But the main thing, the main thing is you're gonna precast the thing that makes your weapon all glowy and fun, right? So that's always fun. That's what you're precasting on your back bar, and then here, let me kill this guy just so we don't have to deal with this. Wait for him to come up. So you'll obviously drink your potion so that you got the buff going. Pre-buff your glowy weapon, and then once you're ready. And I don't have ulti. Hold on. Let me grab it.
Oops.
Yeah. So pre-buff. And then front bar, we're going to do run, barb trap, and then back bar, and then our tentacles, and then heavy attack, ulti, heavy attack, our other back bar ability, the fulminating ruin, and then after that it's back to the front bar. And we want to recast Run at that point because Run will have ran down.
Okay.
And then we're going to use our Writhing Rune Blades, which is what generates our Crux. And then after that, we're just keeping up all of our dots.
Okay.
And what you'll notice is that you're basically... The main thing is just keep all your dots running if you can. The Fulminating Ruin, which is the one that leaves the cool triangle on the ground, that's the first one that I would drop. That one is not that important. Inspired Scholarship, so yeah, they do all good damage, but we're not that worried about eking out a little bit more damage by always keeping all of our dots perfectly up at this point. We're just trying to get a decent parse. And you can get a decent parse without keeping all these skills up. So you're just trying to keep your Inspired Scholarship, because every time you spin Crux, that'll give you another one. And that's really, really useful. And then our Tentacular Dread, that's an extra 11% damage, which is huge. So we want to keep that up. We want to make sure we're casting it with all three Crux up.
Okay.
So that's second priority, is keeping the Tentacular Dread up. Our first priority is keeping that Ruin cast on our 17-second cooldown. So every 10 seconds, so that we're keeping our heavy attack empower buff up. Hey, Chicken, what's going on, man? Thanks for dropping by.
And I have no add-ons, so I have no idea about timers at the moment.
Okay, all right. What I would do is cast Mage's Guild very often, not a big deal. And then when you don't have 3 Crux, try to cast your Crux generating ability, basically.
Okay.
That's what I would go through. And that'll put you in a pretty good situation. And then just keep your, make sure that when you're casting your little tentacle arm thing, that you're casting it with 3 Crux up, ideally. it's better to keep it up, period, because it is going to give you, even if you only have one crux up, it's still going to give you a 7% damage bonus. And that's really important to make sure that kind of stuff is running when you drop your ulti, right? Because that's going to be a big deal. And then obviously you want to make sure your Scalding Rune is down when you're casting, heavy attack. So you don't want that buff to be off. Now I'm going to pull up and talk about some of these parses.
Okay.
I guess it's going to be a little bit hard for you since you're watching on your phone, but can still kind of talk through it. You can pull up your own, I guess. And
nope. I don't have CMX.
Oh, you don't have CMX?
I have no add-ons.
Nani, what's going on?
I know. I failed.
Oh man, that's funny.
Getting practice in getting this set up though.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Yeah, and you can see what you're, see how you're doing. So, with this, I got 84K. Or 84K. So, and I think I got pretty close to 85 on one of them, but 84. And that, honestly, that's about as good as I do on a heavy attack build with the new nerfs.
Okay.
Which, I lost about 5,000. I was doing about 9. I'm sorry, not 9, 90 rather. Hey, Wampus, what's up, man? Thanks for joining. So, yeah, I don't know. Other people can do better with these builds. A lot of times when I'm like a parse 90K, people are like, oh, you can get 100K with that. Some of that is crit farming. Some of it is not. Did we talk about crit farming? Are you familiar with that? Yeah. So if so I don't know how to do this without showing you CMX or whatever. But if you look over at your heavy, I'll just kind of do it on my screen. And if you want to watch this later or something, if you look over at your crits on your CMX for your heavy attacks, you'll see, and it does it for all your skills, but it says your crit percentage. And the thing is that, sometimes you get really lucky and these crit percentages are really high. And that's what we do when we're trying to get that big, like, thumbnail number. We also need to be, I don't want to take anything away from the people that get those 120, 130K parses. Like, they're doing everything perfectly. Like, it's extremely difficult. You have to know every single skill cast. You have to not make any mistakes. You have to hit it at the exact moment with like a fraction of a second, time. But it also helps, in addition to doing all of that, if you get lucky and get good crit. Now, with heavy attack builds and builds that have channeled attacks, so normally you're thinking your light attack and then skill every 1 second. Well, when you have a heavy attack, you actually are casting closer to every 2 when you're with your heavy attack. And so if you think in any 3 given seconds, you'll have 2 abilities that you're casting. You're casting a skill and then a heavy attack. And again, I'm rounding here, right? It's 1.8 seconds, but we'll call it 3. So in that situation, you're casting 2 skills every 3 seconds, which averages out to 1.5 skills every second. So instead of 1 skill every second, you're casting 1.5 skills every second. No, I'm sorry, 1 skill every 1.5 seconds. I'm sorry, I'm saying that backwards. So basically, it's it's a 50% reduction in the number of skills you're casting. Or maybe I'm saying that the opposite way. But regardless, you cast less skills. And so what happens, just like if you're rolling a die, right? You roll a normal 6-sided dice, and on average, each number will come up 1/6 of the time. Well, if you roll it twice, some number, 4 of the numbers are not going to come up at all. Maybe 5 of the numbers, right? But if you roll it enough times, you'll see that, about 1/6 of the time, assuming it's a fair dice, it will come up. And that's the exact same thing that happens on your heavy attack builds. The more casts you have, right, it's kind of like rolling that die more often, and it starts to, approach what the average is. Does that more or less make sense? I'm talking math here. Hi, Lyriel.
Yeah.
Well, the math is fun. Anyways, if you look at your weapon or spell critical, you'll see mine is 56 right now. And my criticals on one of my heavy attack damages, one of these is, I think, the last tick, and the other one's the damage over time. One of them is 61% of the time, so that's more than 56, and the other one's 52% of the time. And so you can see, like, hey, if they were both at 60, then probably my parse would look better than it should.
Okay.
Because usually from heavy attack builds, over 50% of your damage is coming from your heavy attacks. Anyways, just random fun stuff. so
Appreciate it.
so I'm gonna pull up my CMX for this last one. It's not gonna look like a lot, but I just want to talk about a few things just for everybody in chat. And Nani, we've talked about this before. So you can go to if you go to damage caused and then go to fight statistics, you can see that's where you see your damage. But if you go down here, you can also see empower. So I had it up 19% of the time. So if you look at yours, I would CMX is at least the one thing we can get you set up later with that downloaded. But you want to look for empower, and you really want that to be well north of 80%, even with this 2-bar build. So that just makes sure, like, if that's too low, you really want it like 90. 90 would be like perfect. But if you
Okay.
can get it, 85 or above, even 83 or so or above, you're doing pretty well. And then the other thing you're going to look at is you can look at debuffs out and see your Reliquin. And that, generally speaking, with a heavy attack build is going to look really good. It'll tell you how many stacks you have and what the percentage of uptime it was. I didn't really do a parse, so mine looks really bad here, but it'll generally be pretty high. And then the other thing that we want to look at is from our Sergeant's Mail. It's called Sergeant's Focus. And that should, generally speaking, if we're doing a heavy attack build, that'll be close to 90-something%. Hey, Lyriel, this is a great outfit. Lyriel's shaming us for our outfits. I think we look
Oh,
great. We're like metal Barbies or something. I don't know. Or at least my
yeah,
character
I'm not
is,
sure.
because she's really
Well, I think
unnaturally
we're
skinny.
pretty much identical, so pretty close to it.
Cool. Well, yeah. Anyways, I got 85. That's about as much, or 84. That's about as much as I get with any kind of heavy attack build personally. So, yeah. That's that. Do you want? Are you curious about a 1-bar build? Do you want to look at? I
Yes,
could also
I
show you like a
also.
beam build.
I'm not honestly, I'm not real crazy about the beam, um, but I would like to look at the an Oaken Soul heavy attack build.
Okay. Yeah. Let me pull one up here. Oh, I got 87 something on one of these heavy attack builds. Okay, so I did get even better. I don't remember that. It's probably like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right? Crazy about our outfits, huh, L'Oreal?
So, yeah, this is it. Cool. Yeah, so for this one, you're going to use a lot of the same skills that we've already been using, but you're
Okay.
going to take your Inspired Scholarship, move that to your front bar, and you can get rid of Ring of Preservation. You'll actually be getting rid of both of those. You'll keep Barb Trap on the front bar. You'll keep
Okay.
the Writhing Rune Blades
Okay.
on your front bar.
So move Scalding Runes to the back bar.
Yeah, you can actually just get rid of it, or move it to your back bar.
Oh, we don't need Scalding Runes. Oh, well, yeah, this will be front bar only. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, so Inspired Scholarship, Barb Trap, Writhing Blades.
Yep.
And that's it.
Fulminating Rune. Grab that from the back bar. And Tentacular Dread. Grab that from the back bar.
Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of
Those two passive
fighter
skill skills,
Gotcha.
yeah. And then grab your ulti and move it to your front bar.
Okay.
And
yeah, I had it on both bars.
Another note too about that 2-bar build, like you'll need a self heal and stuff like that. Evolving Rune Mend is probably the way to go there, and
Okay.
it has a little bit of a heal over time. It's a really good burst heal, and that'll work really well. And you can put it instead of on your back bar, instead of one of those Fighter's Guild passives, you can just replace one of those.
Okay. Just
And
ask
then
which one would I
just
replace.
use it when you need it.
Okay, so bar is set up. So now, how is my gear set up then?
Yeah, for your gear. So we are gonna have to put on a mythic, and we're not gonna have space, so we will swap out one of our runes, and then you'll put on the chest piece. Of the sergeant, and then you'll put on a shoulder piece reliquin.
Okay.
Jeremy, I'm sorry, man.
Find all this
SM.
stuff.
I'm drawing a blank on which acronym that is. Storm Master. Okay, so Jeremy says the Storm Master is still BIS, but the percentage. I'm sorry, I'm reading this to chat, and not to you, Nani. So I'll just read this to you. It's not that. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't let me distract you. But Storm Master is still BIS, but the percentage of uptime of Storm Master in trials due to mechanics might have to heavy through some things, cause because resistance from Oaken Soul is so good. If not, Storm Master drops to 40 to 60%. Cool. Yeah, Jeremy, I found Reliquin and Storm Master to be identical in parses. Like, there might be a difference, man, but I have found them to be. I've never been able to tell, honestly. And I've done I've done more than a handful, I guess. But I get that, like, some of the other ones, like, they can be like 1 or 2K loss from doing like a light armor set or some of that kind of stuff. But I don't know. That's just my experience. Yeah. So you'll do 1-piece slime crawl for your head as well,
Okay.
right? Because we just want that for the crit. There was someone in a guild earlier that I saw had 2 pieces of slime crawl. I assume because they just had been told that, hey, slime crawl's good and that's what you should use, but they didn't have a mythic, so they just used the monster set. I mean, it's fine that Minor Berserk you get in group content, or you can get it from a lot of other places, and it would be better if you're going to run a monster set to run like Zon. Just FYI for everybody out there. There might be a case if you're like AoEing solo, but I don't really think you would need it in that situation. So generally speaking, you'll just run slime. And the reason you run slime crawl, for those who don't know, is because it does the 1-piece bonus. For whatever reason, the critical on that. So you see it's 771 crit chance. If we look at Zon, that also has a 1-piece crit chance, it's only 656. So it's just kind of random, but it has, you know, a little over 100 more critical chance, which is, I think, what, like 0.5% of actual critical damage that it could, or extra critical chance. So I think it's like 213 or 219 or something critical chance to percentages. I really wish they would change the critical chance to a percentage, just because, like, it's just a little bit of math for a tooltip, and it would make things so much clearer. But yeah, anyway, so you got your one, your crafting stuff I see over there. Let me go ahead and get my gear set up.
So I need the chest. Chest is going to be
Sergeants, yeah.
sergeant.
And the reason we go with chest is because it's heavy, and the chest will provide us with the most armor if we use it as a heavy piece.
Okay.
And there's no downside, so it just makes us a little bit more tanky. And those of you in chat, feel free to ask questions, or if you want to be helpful, like Jeremy had a great point and helped us out with the Storm Master thing, feel free to drop any comments. I would appreciate it. I might forget something. I might not know something, so definitely share your knowledge if you got it.
I have a silly question about the PTS. Is it always up and available? I thought it was on... Oh, nice.
Yeah. What happens is with the PTS is that when a new cycle starts, they port in the characters from. It's basically like you're playing on PC NA, and then after, I don't remember how many weeks, they will swap over and they will port in all the characters from EU.
Right.
And then for the rest of the time, it will be EU. So right now, like, all my characters from EU, all one of them that's like level 15. I'm always like, I'm going to level a character on EU, and it never happens. Are ported over. And actually, I should give a shout out here to the Drunken Whales. These guys are so nice. They leave me in the Discord and in the guild so that I can go use the guild hall and stuff like that if I ever want. Their guild hall's really nice. You've seen it in some of my videos, and I do not participate. I take up a membership role, and they're nice enough to not kick me, so I appreciate
Aw,
it.
that's
Shout out
great.
to the drunken whales.
Drunken whales. So, Slime Craw, am I doing medium or light?
Medium, yeah, you'll be all medium.
Okay.
So Arcanists have something that's kind of weird, and I'm sorry, Nani, I know you're doing stuff.
That's okay.
But they're so you can listen with one ear. I'll talk to chat mostly. But the first passive from the Herald of the Tome, which is our DPS skill line, whenever we generate or consume a crux, it increases our critical damage and critical healing by 12% for 7 seconds. So generally speaking, we will always have that up because we are generally within 7 seconds we're either generating or using a crux in most situations. If you weren't careful or if you had really bad up times, that is something that you could potentially suffer, but in general, it shouldn't be an issue. They also have, and I have to look where it's at. Yeah, the last passive, Splintered Secrets. I just realized the tooltip has like an RP thing in it. What they don't know can kill them. Splintered Secrets. Increase your physical and spell penetration by 991 per Herald of the Tome ability slotted. And with this build, it's like 5,000 penetration because we have 4 of those abilities because you always run all of these. Also, with any 2-bar build, you're usually going to have at least 2 of these, I would say, most of the time on each bar. At least 1. So you're going to at least have a couple of extra K penetration. So what that means is for group content, any kind of optimized content, honestly, for most overland content, you're not going to need a whole lot of extra penetration. For any group content, you're not going to need any. We're going to be way over pinning. We should be at like 22. Actually, with this setup, I think with our last one, we were at like 22, 21, yeah. And we only need 21,000, and we only need like 18,000. So we were way over, and this one will be even more like that.
When we first started this last time, I was doing a magic build. Should I be changing my enchantments now to stamina?
So no, you can stick with Magicka. So the end result is going to be fairly minor.
Okay.
I mentioned last time I like stacking stam because you never know when you're going to need to, dodge roll extra, and having extra stam for blocking and for dodge rolling is helpful. Also, I use Reliquin on my heavy attack builds because I already have it made. So, I use it for other things. So I don't have to have another set like Stormmaster in my bank, even if it's, potentially a little suboptimal or doesn't give as good of cleave or whatever. It's good enough. And so then I just one less 5-piece set. So and then Reliquin, it has the extra stamina. So remember, you basically divide by 10. It's not exactly right, but it's like 10.5, but you divide by 10. So it gives us another, the 5-piece bonus for max stam. If we're stacking stamina, gives us another, 100 spell damage. Also our CP, I don't know if we did that last time. So Exploiter, Wrathful Strikes, Weapons Expert, and Deadly Aim is what I've been running.
Yep, that's different. I had Weapons Expert, Deadly Aim.
Yeah, well, definitely won't need Alkosh if you get all Arcanist. For sure.
So I need Exploiter to replace Bastard Arms.
Yes. And again, in group content, you'll typically have them off balance. If you don't think you have it or the group's really not optimized, you want to drop Exploiter and go with something else.
Okay.
Jeremy, are you gonna? It looks like Jeremy has a comment on the jewelry traits. Do you use infuse with weapon damage enchants? I always go with Bloodthirsty. It's kind of the same deal. I go with Bloodthirsty with weapon and spell damage enchants. If there is, I don't think that anything gives so there was a time with certain abilities and certain skills, if you ran infused jewelry with weapon damage enchants, it would give you a little bit more damage. But we're talking, okay, he's saying bloodthirsty. Yeah, okay, so yeah, that is no longer the case. So there was a period of time, and we're talking again like 1 or 2K. When in general, just as general advice to everybody, when there's something where it's like, hey, you can do this really kind of odd thing that probably was an accident and it will give you 1 or 2 more K. Listen, if you're super sweaty in game or whatever, like absolutely go for it. Yeah, do whatever. If you're not, I would strongly recommend not doing something like that on live, because usually those are accidents and they fix it. So a great example of this not with gear, but like Khajiits. Periodically, Khajiits become best in slot for all DPS. This happened several times, and they always nerf it. Okay, and so Khajiit now it's good if you're solo, because you need the extra critical damage typically, or oftentimes. Probably maybe not with an Arcanist, but to be totally honest with you, it's probably some stuff you could do where you wouldn't need that. But it's not something you want to go race change for, because it's probably an accident and they're probably going to change it back. Yeah, thanks, Tull. The Tull is pointing out that some abilities weren't scaling the same with Bloodthirsty as they did with the spell power enchants, and that's why it was useful. Cool. So yeah, then we're good. So what you're gonna do is come up to this guy. You'll do your pre-buff, make your weapon look all pretty. The goal here is, with the Tentacular Dread, is to do the same thing. We're not using it as a spammable so much. We're using it as a way of getting that extra damage. So this ability, go ahead and pre-buff it, and then honestly, I usually start with the Tentacular Dread. You're only going to have typically, you might not have any Crux. You might have one, but I'll go ahead and use it to get that buff going. And then after that, you're just doing dots, right? So you're going to pre-buff your Inspired Scholarship, drop your Barbed Trap, then Tentacular Dread, get your Fulminating Ruin going for your dots, and then after that drop your ulti, and then you could probably even drop your ulti before Fulminating Ruin. It doesn't really matter. It's not that big a deal. I mean, it does matter, but it's small increments. We're not trying to like fine tune this. And then after that, you just use your Writhing Ruin Blades as your spammable. I will note that Writhing Ruin Blades being cast with 3 stacks of Crux does really good damage. So
nice.
Something to keep in mind, it does really good damage as a spammable, especially when you have all those stacked. I also played around, just so people know, the other morph of Tentacular Dread has a built-in execute. I found playing with this build, and with all these builds that I'm recommending the other morph on, it is better. The damage increase isn't that much, and it's much easier, in my opinion, and better because the extra buff, to just use the Writhing Ruin Blades as your spammable. And because it hits so hard when all 3 of them are stacked up, it gives you like a 75% crit chance, and just does really good damage. So give it a shot, Nani. See how it goes.
Whoop, wrong one. See, I got it.
Jeremy here saying enchanted a weapon for that stam regen, because heavy attack fill mag fast.
A mouse here. I didn't know where anything was.
Had a cat crow for Tulsa's had a cat crow for 1 patch. Evil ploy to waste my tokens. I feel you on that, Tull. It was really frustrating for me when they made the last time they changed the races and they didn't give out a race change token. What's that?
I just got an achievement.
Oh, nice. Achievement farming on PTS, huh?
Right?
Yeah, the changing the race tokens
to get used to it
can be really frustrating.
Oops.
I'm just going to pull up here and see what I was able to parse on this. I think I don't remember. All right, there's a single bar one. 91K.
That's not bad.
No, that was with the beam. The beam,
Oh.
unfortunately, works really well. Yeah, I think I did the same. I think I did 84. So I managed to get the same parse basically with the single and the 2-bar build, which I think is what we were going with when we first started doing the 2-bar build for Cloud Rest, was try to get something comparable to the 1-bar build, even if it's just a bit more complicated. So I called that a success, at least for me. I would be curious for everybody out there, and for you, Nani, if you guys get like a 100K, 90K parse, 95K, I would love to see that parse, because I'm going to make these into videos for these builds, and I don't have time or inclination to crit farm right now for good parses and what have you. I have an overuse injury, so I can't do it. But if you send it to me, I will give you a shout out, and it would be nice to be able to have a thumbnail, because sometimes you have two builds that are identical, but you have a lower parse, and most people don't know that. And it's understandable, right? They might just be like, well, this one's 95K and the other one's, 100K. So I'm going to go with the 100K build, even if it's way more complicated, maybe doesn't work as well, or maybe it's just comparable, and then it's just fine too. But you're going to go with the higher number. So as YouTubers, we have to do that. Well, Nani, do you want a beam build? Do you want to see this?
Sure. Is this an Oaken Soul or a light attack? What kind of
it is an Oaken Soul. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me pull it up. Yeah, so this is the 91K parse. I parsed like twice. I didn't parse very often with this, and it felt really bad, but it did a ton of damage. So it's kind of like, okay. So it just works really well. It's definitely the best thing to do. And I got another, 7K more, 8K, with this. So for this one, you are going to use the beam. So you use the Exhausting Fate Carver. Still going to use the Inspired Scholarship. Still going to use Barb Trap. Sorry, I'm trying to read this. It's so tiny. I think we're going to drop Ruined Blades. Yeah. So we're going to remorph our Tentacular Dread to the other morph. You can just purchase a skill respec if you don't have one from the Crown Store. And then Exhausting Fate Carver, Inspired Scholarship, and then Barb Trap.
Okay, which one am I remorphing?
The Tentacle.
The Tentacle.
Is it easier if I say like what it looks like? For me, that would be easier, but I don't want to be confusing.
That's okay. We're getting there.
Okay.
We're getting to the end result.
All right.
And that's the only remorph that I need to do?
Yes.
Okay. Done.
We are going to have to go make some gear, though.
Okay.
So you'll want to do Deadly and Pillar of Nirn. And they're both medium, so it doesn't matter where you put them.
So, like Pillar of Nirn weapons.
It doesn't matter, since they're both medium, so you can use them interchangeably. Okay. And for anybody watching, listening, that is generally that's the case when people often ask like, hey, which one do I put on jewelry? Which one do I put on body? I've talked about this before. I actually have like a short, like less than, I think it's like an 8-minute long video that goes over the hybrid meta and stuff like that. It's usually better to run at least 5 pieces of medium, and then run a couple of one piece of light, maybe 6 pieces of medium, or maybe sometimes 2 pieces of medium. The reason you or a light, I'm sorry. The reason you might want to run a couple of pieces of light is to make sure you get to penetration cap. In trials, that's 18,200. In most overland content, it's about half that, 19 and some change, or 9,000 and some change, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm just going off memory. And then some of the arenas and other stuff, they'll be like 13,000. So you kind of have to look it up. It's a little bit confusing.
So for the weapon, I'm going Pillar of Nirn for weapons and jewelry. So lightning staff precise?
No, I'm sorry. I should have told you that. So you're going to go with daggers. So go with Nirnhoned and charged. I feel you, the grind. Wampus
going off.
Wampus is saying they're making a stam arc, but they're grinding it out, and it's not very fun. I think everybody is on that page right now.
Yeah.
It's like, do we really need to level like my 15th or 20th tune or whatever? Because I've deleted a few.
All right.
I feel you on the Tull being on the PS PlayStation. Yeah, I've got some friends that are console.
And what are we doing for Head and Shoulders?
Just 1 second.
Sure.
I'm not tracking with you on scaling the UI a bit. I assume it's a little too small to see. I'm not sure how to do that. Tull, but if you tell me, or if you know how, I would be happy to do it, man. I'm sorry, I just don't know off the top of my head how to do that. Sorry, go ahead, Nani. What was that?
Head and Shoulders.
Yeah, Head and Shoulders. You are going to do still Slime Crawl because we're going to do Oaken Soul.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah, and then whatever you need for the shoulder to complete your 5-piece sets.
Okay.
And this is more a note for anybody who's making your own build. You'll see me moving my skills around here. I tend to keep Barb Trap towards the furthest to the right. That's just what I do. So that's usually what I do. I usually keep my spam bowl on like 3. And then sometimes a very often used skill I will tend to put on 4. A skill that I don't use very often or has a long like this has a very long channel time, or that, like, you know, another place I might put Barb Trap would be like 2. But yeah, so that's why I have this on 2. I don't do this as much on DPS because stuff is a lot more flexible, and at this point I'm just gonna like throw it wherever, I'll figure it out. But if you have some sort of way in your mind of like, hey, 3 is always my spammable, that will help you to have better DPS, because when you're like, I think all my dots are up, what do? You always hit 3, and you don't have to be even on different characters and different styles of characters. You can kind of come up with what works for you and then kind of stick with that, and that'll really help you. Like, and it can be totally made up. Like, you can just be like, oh, I don't know, like all my like 1, I'll tend to do weapon abilities. So like if I have Wall of Elements, it'll almost always be on 1. I also will tend to use, like, if I'm on a Nightblade and it's a like the Refreshing Path or Twisting Path, it has basically the same area as a Wall of Elements, so I'll put it on 1 because those 2 skills look the same, you know. And so that doing that kind of stuff, it seems silly, but it'll actually help you get better at your rotation and your DPS. I'm sorry, man.
Okay.
It's just too small. I'll look that up and see, Tull, if I can figure that out. Cool. So a couple of benefits that I'll just point out about this is that Pillar of Nirn, pretty easy to get. You can run Falkreth on normal. Deadly, it's going to be very expensive probably because a lot of people are going to be using it because of the beam, because it works so well, but it is PvP and you can't purchase it from guild traders. And then, of course, Oaken Soul can be a little tough to get. All right. Yeah, pretty simple rotation here on this one, which is, I guess, kind of why it works so well. So we'll precast our Inspired Scholarship, which is makes our weapon look all cool and glowy. Drop Barb Trap. That'll take a second to go off. And then after that, we just go into our rotation. So I would probably go with your Tentacle to get the debuff on the mob so that it takes extra damage. And then Deadly Cloak, and then your Beam. Now, you'll use your Tentacles to generate Crux now. Instead of consuming Crux, the morph you have, and for those watching, I didn't remorph mine. I can here, but it'll generate a Crux. So what you want to do is, generally speaking, your Inspired Scholarship will give you 1 Crux always. So you'll need to cast your Abyssal Impact, your Tentacles, twice, and then you'll beam. So you want to beam only when you have 3 Crux up. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So just give that a shot. You'll do just fine.
Yeah.
DNC Fox here.
Oh. I beamed too soon. So this is more of a light attack.
Yes. Yeah, you'll be light attacking with this one.
Okay.
Yeah, this isn't a heavy attack build. It's like the beam build. But
Yep.
I think honestly this is I don't want to hate on it. No one likes when you're negative, you know, but I really don't like the beam. It's just a personal preference. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Clearly it does really good damage, but it feels like it feels like dubstep to me, and I'm like a white guy with no rhythm. Like I can't, cuz it's like, "Oh, I'm light attack weaving." And then I cast the skill that channels for 4.5 seconds, which feels like 3 eternities. I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels so long. And so I was missing so many light attacks, like, just because it's like, okay, light attack weave, hit a button, grab some coffee, get a drink, you know, pet your favorite animal, like, you know, if you got a pet beside you. DNC Fox, winter comment is too long. Anyways, hope things are well. Just want to say thanks for the easy. Just wanted to say thanks for the easy to digest, informative videos. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you guys watching. DNC Fox here just said thanks for the videos. I don't know how you. I'm sure you feel much the same way that I do, Nani. But like, it's cool to get to make content and having like one person watch your stuff and be like, "Hey, this was cool. I enjoyed this." Is just like, it's just like, really, you like what I did?
Yep.
Lyriel.
Cruxus.
What was
Sorry.
that? Go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead.
Cruxus is over here helping me out too.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm a little behind. I'm going to catch up on this chat here while you parse.
Okay. I'm just kind of trying to get used to this rotation that feels weird.
Yeah. So it felt horrible for me. And then I was like, 91K parse.
How did that
And I was
happen?
like, yeah. So hopefully you get the same experience. It feels pretty weird, though.
Yeah, unfortunately I can't see what my parse is, but you'd think they'd have something in base game that would give that information.
Sorry, give what information?
What your parse is, what you're doing for damage.
Oh, like live or whatever.
Yeah.
And it only gives it till after. You know, one of the things you can do though now is you can hit F5 to kill the dummy.
Yeah.
So it just as an FYI to you or anybody else doing that though, just realize that because of the way Bloodthirsty works, it's going to look lower than what your actual damage would be if you went all the way down, because Bloodthirsty ramps up the damage. But it can be very good if you just want to like do like parse to 60% and then just kind of see like, hey, I made a change. Did it help? Did it not help? And not have to do the full parse.
Right. So is there something base game where I can look and see what my parse was, or is CMX the only thing?
It should output to your chat. Does it not? Are you not seeing
Nope.
your?
Oh, yes, it did.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The dummies will output to chat.
Okay.
Um, that has been bugged quite a bit recently, including on especially for like console people because they don't have add-ons. It was like I don't know, like the timing combat was different or something, but yeah, that's how you can see.
Okay. Thank you.
It's
That
really
helps
funny
me
when
out
like
a
an
little bit.
add-on developer has like better tools than yeah.
Well, I kind of
Anyways.
feel like they all do.
Yeah, well, yeah, they all do. I guess it's funny when the game is telling you like the numbers are wrong, but like the add-on developer is telling you it's right. It's just kind of you would think somebody
Yep.
would be embarrassed. I don't know.
Maybe. You would think. Oh, awesome. So I am going to level my baby Arcanist on the live and play with all three of these builds on the live
Awesome.
and see how it works out.
I don't know if you have a Templar, but I've got
I
the
do.
build. I've got the build done. It will be, I think, less useful for you as maybe other people. But Templars heavy attack builds, I think, are probably the most accessible and the best in the game. And the reason for that is they have a skill that you can cast that will give you 20 seconds of empower from their class skill. And so you don't need Oaken Soul. And when you don't need Oaken
Ah,
Soul, if you're in group content, just like what we did earlier with the 2-bar build, you can throw on a monster set and um, get extra damage. So I will hopefully have that out in the next week or so. So
okay. I was going to say as soon as you do, I will throw that because I've not been happy with my Templar for a while now. She's just kind of become a grit mule at the moment. So I would love to find a heavy attack build that I like with her.
if you want, I mean, I don't know if you have time or we could call it here. I could hop over though. I've got it set up.
Okay.
You want to?
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, it's
I've
up to
got
you.
time.
I don't know if yours is, I guess, do you have one on PTS? Or
I
I guess
don't.
you could just watch if you wanted.
Yeah.
I could show you what I got. Okay, cool. Let me hop over. And I still haven't caught up on chat. This is this is why I'll never be a real streamer because I can't do two things at once. It's just
I'm terrible with it too. Cruxus is he's telling me I could just math it, figure out
just
what
math
my
it.
just math it. That's what I have you, Cruxus, and Night Arrow for is to do the math for me.
So Wampus is saying here for monster set, they feel like Storm Fist would be best for a Stam arc due to the limits on light attack to proc the other monster sets like Maw. Um, yeah, I think that could make sense. Well, I don't even. What is the proc for Zon? Is it light attack? Light or heavy attack? Okay. Yeah, Wampus, that's a really good point. So just to kind of rehash what Wampa said here in chat is that and this, yeah. So for some of the sets, they proc off a lighter heavy attack, and then they have cooldowns. And this actually was the reason we had to swap to Deadly and a Pillar of Nirn, because Pillar of Nirn, if I recall, procs off of damage. I say as I pull it up.
I was gonna say, let me look.
I chose it for a reason, and I think I chose it because it procs off damage. Yeah, when you deal damage.
Deal damage.
And then sets like Reliquin, sets like World of Depths, stuff like that, they proc off of light attacks and heavy attacks. And so if you're doing that beam for like 4 seconds, which is 4.5 seconds, which again, multiple eternities, and your timer is up for your monster set to proc, what if that happened at, when you just start after your beam and now you're not lighter heavy attacking, so then you have 4 seconds of kind of wasted time. And so going with something else that would proc, yeah, that's a Wampus. I'm gonna steal that, man. I'm gonna add that into the build because I think for the beam build something else would be better. So I would agree with you on Stormfist, probably the best way to go there for sure, and would probably give a little bit more damage. So the beam build at 91k probably is probably only like a 1 or 2k more, but that much better than the other builds. if you can deal with a beam, which I would prefer not to, honestly.
But having a build for those that do like it, you know.
Just enough time to take a sip. Yeah, for sure.
I just haven't made a decision yet on whether I like the beam. I like the damage. I'm just not sure if I like the forever.
So what do you mean by the math didn't work out? It was several seconds off. I mean, I believe you. I'm just not tracking. And thanks, Wampus. Wampus actually was telling us that they were Nern procs off of any damage. So, yeah. Let me confirm that I wasn't playing with something else with this build. Yeah, it looks like I've got sergeants on jewelry and weapons, and then Rally body, and then Zon monster set. And is this definitely a 1-bar build? I don't even have my bar swap rebound to what I normally use. So for this one, we're going to use Camouflage Hunter on our 5 spot. That's just going to be for the passive. We're not going to do anything with it. And then we got Barb Trap for the extra critical damage, and then we're going to use Solar Barrage. So Solar Barrage is what gives us Empower, and it gives it to us for 22 seconds, which is huge. I think that more classes, or I think they should modify Mage's Guild, honestly, so that any class could use a heavy attack build. But I don't know. It is kind of cool that Templars can do a heavy attack build without Oaken Soul, and it hits really hard. And then Purifying Light, and then Blazing Spear. Yeah, that's a good point about the bash weaving, but that's pretty intense for a lot of people. But yeah, absolutely, you could bash weave to proc it.
Ansels and Deadly for the heavy attack.
Ansels and Deadly. Wait, Deadly with a heavy attack?
It's not dead. I'm reading chat.
Yeah, okay, no worries.
Talking heavy attack, so I
Ansel's Torment, I assume. Yeah, I've been hearing good things about that. I haven't played around with it too much. Yeah, but with this build, man, you know what? I did all this testing to see if like recasting Purifying Light early was better or to let it tick off. And I wanted to say the best thing to do. Man, I'm forgetting. I think it's best to let it tick off because it's not going to line up correctly. These are the things you have to test. So for this one, I guess we'll grab some ulti. Also, when I did this, I'm using Crescent Sweep. I actually didn't check the math on if Crescent Sweep or something else would be better for the ultimate, but Crescent Sweep is not bad, so that's why I just stuck with it. So whenever I do the build, these are the things I'll figure out, guys, and we'll make sure that I'm giving you the best info. But for this one, let me make sure I have food on if I'm going to parse. I do. And I'm using Sugar Skulls here just because it's a heavy attack build and that can help your survivability a lot. So we'll go Trap, how about Power of the Light, get our ulti going there, and then, yeah. Then heavy attack away, and we'll let our Power of the Light, I believe that's what it's called, we'll let that tick down every single time. And yeah, just heavy attack away. I don't recall also if heavy attacking or using the Blessed Shards is best to do. That is also something I'll have to figure out for the final build. But yeah, it's a pretty easy build here, and yeah, hold left click and keep up the dots. Probably the easiest build. Your DPS priorities here, I'm not going to do this whole parse. Sorry, guys. Your DPS, and remember that the damage here is going to be low because we're not getting all of our Bloodthirsty bonus. But the main thing, you want to keep Barb Trap for the critical damage. The most important thing is Solar Barrage, keeping that up for the Empower. Because a lot of times when it runs out too, just realize like if it runs out and you're halfway through a heavy attack, like you just lost all that bonus damage to your heavy attack. So you really want to keep Solar Barrage up, recast it early if you need to. Similarly with Barb Trap, and then Purifying Light. So I would say Solar Barrage, Purifying Light, and then Barb Trap, roughly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it sounds as simple as my sort.
yeah, it's really easy. And then Blazing Spear is just a spammable that you can put in between. And Blazing Spear, like I know a lot of people, especially if you're running solo, they might want to run Wall of Elements. You would just replace Blazing Spear. That's your flex spot. If you
Okay.
need or want a self heal, then Camo Hunter. You could just replace it. You got a flex spot there. So
Awesome.
yeah. And then CP for those, CP is the same. Um, Most of the other stuff, your traits for your jewelry and everything, you're gonna go still bloodthirsty, still with weapon and spell damage enchants, precise with the staff. You could do poison, you can do fire enchant, whatever you want to do, really. And then you can just go with yeah. You also want to run one light with this. Let me just confirm that with CMX. Yeah, and so we pull up CMX here, and what we're looking at. So if you're stacking weapon or spell damage, these are the two in the center here. So you can see this is spell critical, weapon critical. So you want to look at whichever one of these you're stacking. But then just look at your penetration here. Effective. The reason this is effective is 18,200 is because that's the cap. Anything above that doesn't do anything, and you can see we're just above cap at 18,669. And then we look at our critical damage. Our effective is 125, which is great. Our max is 127. It's capped at 125. It's good that we're not too far over, so that's good. Being a couple points over is better than being a couple under, so that looks good. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions about any of this stuff before? I think we'll probably call it here, but I'm happy to ask or answer questions or anything. We'll give them a second. Nani, thanks so much. It's really nice to get to go through these and kind of talk to somebody and and chat.
Anytime. I enjoy this process and watching the process and learning it, and now I'm anxious to go out and like play with it and see how it does in content. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm sure you'll have questions and be like, I don't remember this. Feel free to hit me up. So
It's DMs. Ping, ping, ping.
yeah, for sure.
I
Well,
appreciate you.
yeah, maybe we can do this again in the future here and
Yeah.
go through some builds. And if anybody in both chats, if you like this, if you find it helpful, if it's a good time to just come and chat and give some advice, like several people have offered, Jeremy and Wampus, and I'm hesitant to mention names. I'm pretty sure everybody had some great advice at some point, but it's good to share advice and then also to get information. But let me know if you like it, and let Nani know if you like it by giving us thumbs up, all that kind of good stuff. If you drop a sub or whatever, that's really good data for us as like streamers and YouTubers to be able to be like, okay, this is actually good. We look at those numbers and like, I mean, we also look at like people watched, but like when someone goes above and beyond, it's like, okay, yeah, this really was good. I really did like this. It's just good signal for us that like, hey, this is good.
Also like to know, if you try these out, give us your feedback. How do you like it? How's the beam working for you? Which one do you prefer?
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because like what I am used to or what you're used to and what somebody else is used to are two different things. So some things that I might be like, I don't like this. Other people might be like, no, it's great, it's amazing. So
Yep.
All
right. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
You have a great night, and I've got to. Yeah, I'm gonna go play for a little bit. I got time before my next trial.
Awesome. Thanks, Nani. I'll
Take
talk to you
care.
later. Thank you, Wampus. I appreciate it, man. Until no, there is not an ability that makes more than one crux, unfortunately. You know what? I will have to follow up with Nani on this. Actually, man, this this is the kind of stuff, the fine-tuned stuff that I'll make sure to include in the build guide. There are. I'm gonna switch over to the Arcanist just so I can show you guys, because there's actually like a. This is kind of big for content, especially with these one bar builds, or the more trying to get like a more simplified, easy to understand and comprehend build. There's one more skill that you want to take a look at. So, and there's actually probably more. Crux Weaver Armor. This ability lasts for 30 seconds. it gives you Major Resolve, which increases your armor. So this doesn't do anything if you have Oaken Soul, because you already have that. But the main thing, the main reason you want this, when you take damage, if you look at the very bottom, blows against your armor also generate Crux. This can happen once every 5 seconds. What can happen if you're with like the beam build or any build that you're trying to generate a lot of Crux for, if you put this on your back bar, if you're using a 2-bar build, and you keep that up, and again, it lasts for forever, right? 30 seconds. You can get hit, take damage, generate Crux to then use for your Fate Carver. So if you're using a beam build, a lot of times you like have to cast one skill because your Inspired Scholarship is giving you a Crux, and then the Crux Weaver armor is giving you a Crux, and sometimes like you can just immediately beam again, but otherwise you only have to use like Tentacular, or I'm sorry, not Tentacular Dread, the other morph of Abyssal Impact, or I think that's probably the best thing to do, and then you can beam again and you'll have 3 stacks already. So there are some things that this doesn't work on a dummy, but it's actually better in content. So that's kind of interesting. A lot of people are always like, hey, you know, oh, this stuff doesn't work well in content, but you know, it just works on the dummy. This is actually something that's the opposite, where it doesn't work on the dummy, but it actually works better in content. So anyways, I'm going to call it there, guys. I appreciate everybody stopping in and talking. It's been really fun. It's really nice to have everybody in chat and be able to talk. So you guys have a great afternoon, and I'll catch you next time.